Hey everyone, this is acyuta-bhava from Nightlight Astrology, and today we are going to take a look at Mars's square to Uranus. Honestly, this is one of those transits that I feel like there's not a lot of transits that I get scared of because mostly what I've seen over the course of my career and just watching transits in my own personal life is that most of the time the transits that people are scared of, there's some reason to be maybe apprehensive about, but it never turns out really as bad as you think it will. It's as though most of our fortune is mixed. You're never going to see things that are extremely bad or extremely good. You're sort of going to see stuff that lands right in the middle. When a good transit comes, it'll be good, but not like suddenly you become the world's most famous or wealthy person or something. And similarly, when something happens that's bad, it's usually not tragic. Obviously, there's a smaller amount of times in which you see stuff that are that things that are more tragic. But when it comes to Mars-Uranus, I feel like very rarely have I ever really liked this transit. I just want to be honest about that. I'm always surprised. It's not that I've never seen anything good, but this transit is a difficult one. And I think it's important to just be real about that. Every astrologer has different experiences. I'm sure there'd be some out there who would say, "Oh, I love this one" or whatever. But from when I see this transit coming around, I'm like, "Oh, great, here we go." This one can be more aggravating. So let me try to explain why. Here, first of all, let's take a look at the real-time clock, and then I'll also give you some of my opinions about how to sort of deal with this transit, or how to, I don't like to say make the most out of it, because it's like, these are gods. What are we going to do? But there's an attitude, almost a posture that you can take with this transit that I think helps quite a bit. So I'll talk about that as well. So here's Mars squaring Uranus, Mars in Aquarius, squaring Uranus in Taurus. Of course, Venus just went through the square last week at the end of the week, and now we're looking at Mars making a square to Uranus. So this transit will last, if we take it forward, you give it about a 3-degree range. You're going to be feeling this all the way till about Saturday, March 26th. But of course, usually the most dynamic energy happens right on or right around the actual perfection date. So maybe you back this up over this last weekend, or take it forward till this coming weekend, and that's sort of the most likely range in which you would be feeling or noticing these experiences. But so here you have the god of war, a god in Mars that is like a scalpel. It cuts and it severs, and it confronts, and it is a planet associated with things like burning and frustration, fevers, argumentation, and hostility. So this is an element of life. Of course, Mars generally is associated with action and with the will. Of course, so often our will is our problem. It's like getting the will to serve the indwelling spirit soul, realizing that the will is in service to that king or queen that sits on the throne of the heart. And so can our will be aligned in a service attitude? I think that's always the question with Mars. Are we serving something bigger than ourselves with our will? If we are, asserting ourselves, are we doing it on behalf of the good? The good being the perennial virtues that all spiritual traditions talk about: compassion, humility, compassion and patience, humility, tolerance, love, gentleness and kindness, charity, helping people who are in need, loving our neighbors. I mean, these are pretty much universal values, right? So the quick question for Mars is always, do we have Mars the martyr, the one who is in service as some kind of advocate or sacred protector of these virtues or development of these virtues? Or do we have Mars, the one who represents the separate interests of the ego? Pretty basic. I know in making it so basic, it's like, well, we've all got to live with this, though. We all have to live with having an ego and trying to make use out of it and not condemn it. So Mars is not to be condemned. I talked a lot about this at the start of this month with Venus and Mars going through a long conjunction together, we don't want to get into a war on war. War has its place. Even in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna finds himself on a battlefield where the question is basically, I'm a warrior by nature. I'm in a battlefield that is life. It's inevitable on some level that I have to fight by virtue of just being here. Things are eating each other just to live. Life eats life to be alive. So how do I do this while also being a yogi? And that's sort of the whole context of the Bhagavad Gita. So this is not a question that's like too big for us. And it's not about excluding Mars. Arjuna says, I'd like to just head to a cave and meditate. And Krishna's like, well, that's not real yoga. You have to be engaged. The ego is a part of it. The will is a part of it. Choice is a part of it. Agency and personal responsibility and engagement in the dualities of life are part of it. So certainly not trying to trying to water down Mars, and or anything like that. But I think the question comes back to, if we have a constructive Mars, then Mars is a warrior in sacred service. Just put it simple like that. And I think we can all get behind some version of that in our own psyches and our own lives. So when Mars is like that and hits a square with Uranus, the god often associated with Prometheus and the qualities of rebellion and innovation, defiance and disruption, a planet that is associated with the desire to break the mold and progress, tends to look toward the future, tends to discard and replace old habits or behaviors with new patterns that press forward bravely and defiantly. So when you have those two combined and they are serving something bigger, to me, that is the constructive potential here. We're talking about the sacred revolution. We're talking about advancement and progress, where taking the right amount of risk and putting yourself on the line and experiencing a breakthrough. But in order to have that breakthrough, you need to assert yourself and in a sense, stand up for something. So to me, Mars-Uranus, the sacred radical warrior, something like that. Like radical, I don't obviously mean fanatical, but I mean, the break from normalcy that is required for real evolution to happen, for a real growth to happen. I remember, there's times in my life where I remember one time when I was in graduate school, for a while, I got rid of my TV and I just gave it to, there was foreign exchange family living in grad housing next to me. It didn't have a TV. So I just gave it to them because I just was like, hey, I noticed they don't have a TV and maybe they'd like one. And in hindsight, I'm like, oh, was I cursing them? I don't know. But they gladly accepted it. And to me, that was like a cord cutting. It was like a really, I was a really daring moment for me to be like, no TV, I'm done with it. There are moments like that. Maybe they don't involve purging or getting rid of something. Maybe that was a little too austere of me. I don't know. But I think the point remains, which is that if you're going to take a healthy risk in the name of development and growth, you couldn't have a better transit than Mars-Uranus to just light the fire, whatever the metaphor might be, and push you forward to do it. Okay, so that's the positive. To me, if Mars is learning to be the martyr, and I don't mean a martyr complex, I mean to give itself, to give our will in service of something more, a code of conduct, a moral compass, a spiritual compass, a devotional intimacy with life itself, and Mars is behind us, then this to me could be a moment of breakthrough, a moment of taking that leap and pressing forward against the odds, or something like that. The reason I don't like this transit is because I feel like I'm someone who has a spiritual practice every single day. And I still feel like I get grabbed by Mars-Uranus like every time it comes around. When this is more egotistical, when it's more divisive, it tends to be reckless, destructive, violent, sudden, and sort of hostile. It's that sudden moment of, I don't give a damn what you think, and I'm going to burn a bridge or something like that. Like, you got to be really careful of that. It's that moment where you're driving too aggressively in traffic and you end up totaling your car. Hopefully no one's injured, but maybe you even get whiplash. It's that moment, Mars-Uranus, where you know, if you have a temper, you could get in a fist fight with someone in line at the grocery store. Mars-Uranus is, you're not going to tell me what to do. Mars-Uranus is being foolhardy, taking unnecessary risks. It's the kid who decides to do a skateboard trick and breaks his arm because he just was showing off for his friends. Mars-Uranus is high speed intensity with a real potential for recklessness in the ego, in the body, and so forth. So that's why I never really like this transit when it comes around. I can't tell you how many times, my kids have banged their heads, gotten cuts, whatever. Just, it's like a little, you ever see that commercial? It's on TV, and I don't remember which insurance company it is, but there's a guy and he represents mayhem, and he's just like the personification of mayhem. I feel like Mars-Uranus can be like that. It can be a little like an embodiment of mayhem. Some chaos in life is part of life. It's part of how the magic of life unfolds. And so the other thing to, I guess, maybe redeem this energy is that, sometimes the universe teaches us specifically because my dad used to say when I was a kid, you're cruising for a bruising, and not that he would bruise me, but that life would, you keep doing that, you're cruising for a bruising, he used to say. And I think the universe teaches us that way sometimes. I mean, sometimes people say, we have to hit rock bottom, or I'm not talking about rock bottom in a depressive way, though. I'm talking about it literally like, like that dog. You ever have a dog that sometimes will just run into a wall, on mistake or something? They'll just bash into a wall, or they're not watching where they're going, and they'll, So don't bark at yourself in a mirror. Don't be careful not to lose yourself in a streak of hot, reckless intensity. That's the main thing. I also, honestly, I see sometimes people go through meltdowns of technology. It's not uncommon to see electrocutions, problems with electronics. So anything that could involve sudden jolts or strikes of misfortune or discord or discordancy, with an aura of defiant willfulness. Those are the kinds of things you want to be really careful for with this transit. If I had to, guess what movie is on my screen unknowingly at the time of this transit, it's probably a documentary about people who ride big waves or something like that, big surfing documentary. I mean, it's kind of an extreme sport transit. So I hope today I have given you a feeling for the maybe sort of sacred, constructive ways in which this transit might be experienced versus those that are more destructive. Here's the general attitude that I recommend taking with this. Okay, I want you to imagine that Mars-Uranus is like an odd couple coming. It's a couple coming over to dinner at your house, or a couple of friends or something. They're coming over, and one of them has like hair that looks like mine, but maybe more like Doc from Back to the Future, and there's like lightning sparking out of it, and they look very unstable but interesting. Okay, and then the other one is pissed off, beet red, and holding a scalpel. Okay, so so first of all, just sort of imagine that those two guests are coming over to your house. What kind of environment do you create? Well, for any god coming to your house, first of all, it's hospitable. So you start off, at least this is the way I do it, by just welcoming them psychically and saying, I know that you'll be around. I know that you have nothing but my best interest in mind, even if you also administer over crazy karma. So please teach me, please be gentle with me. Please do not let me be unknowingly harnessed by my ego into destructiveness. Just literally say those prayers and sincerely say them. The second thing that I recommend is to ask, what do you need or want from me? And what can I give you that comes from my best self? So if you act like a hospitable host, and you ask what you can do, and you ask to be taught gently, I have found that just those intentions, prayed honestly and sincerely, make all the difference in the world. The other thing is just be aware of these qualities and try to keep a calm atmosphere. Calm does not mean lack of excitement or enthusiasm, which is also okay. By calm, I mean, I guess, not given to the wild, destructive, chaotic, egotistical, divisive elements of this transit. So make sure you've slept. Make sure you're not overly caffeinated. Make sure that you're, taking care of your body. Make sure that you are very careful about how you deal with potentially volatile situations. It can become a lot more volatile very quickly with this transit. Just try to keep the environment we would call sattvic in yoga philosophy. And I think you will find that along with those prayers, that the transit will be very helpful. And ultimately, you become more sensitive to the presence of the planets when we do this for every planetary transit, really. So I hope that's helpful for all of you. Those are certainly the things that I have found to be very useful over the years, and I hope you'll find them useful too. All right, that's what I've got for today. I hope you guys have a good one. Share your stories. Use the hashtag grab. Tell me about Mars-Uranus. If you would rather email, it's grabbed@nightlightastrology.com. All right, take it easy, everyone. Bye.